I think one of the conspiracy theories involved around the 27 Club involves Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones. Now, Brian Jones was a founding member of the band. He actually is credited with giving the band their name and formed the band and brought in Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. Now, this would have been in 1962, and it started out as kind of a British blues outfit. And this takes us back to Robert Johnson, because it is said that the blues, the southern black blues music, influenced a lot of the British bands, including the Rolling Stones. And that's kind of how the band started out. But it is also said that once Jagger and Richards began to write songs together, they kind of wanted to take the band in a different direction. And they kind of had problems between themselves and Brian Jones, and they wanted Brian Jones out. And they say that Brian Jones began to drink heavily and use drugs. And the other band members were saying that he was becoming more unreliable within the band. And so in 1969, the Rolling Stones dismissed him and brought in a new guitarist named Mick Taylor. Not even a month later, Jones died of drowning at the age of 27 at his swimming pool at his home in England. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989. Now, many people don't believe that it was a simple drowning. A lot of people believe that he was murdered. Most people contribute it to drunkenness. He fell into the pool, was in a state of drunkenness or drugs, and drowned. Others believe that it had more to do with this business of the Rolling Stones, and that he was a founding member, and even though they had kind of pushed him out of the band, he was expecting financial restitution, or he wanted what he felt was due to him. Now, on July the 3rd, 1969, Brian Jones drowned at his home at the age of 27, but questions linger about what really happened that night. The rumor mill began churning almost immediately, but 53 years later, this article was written in 2022. But all these years later, I'll put it that way, all these years later, the mystery still remains. It's well known that he drowned at his home. However, the circumstances remain unclear. There were several witnesses that tell different stories about that night, and the coroner's report didn't match what the police told the press. There was supposedly a deathbed confession from a long-time suspect in Brian Jones' death. All this information leads to one question about what really happened. Brian Jones bought the home only that November. He died in July, and he had only been living there since November. He wanted to get away from the harassment from living in the city. And he also says that there was a police sergeant that held a grudge against him, and that would harass him every time that he saw him or any other members of the band in town because of marijuana charges. So he'd been in and out of court over this, and it said that he had fallen into heavier drinking and was abusing prescription pills. Some people don't believe that that was the real reason that he was let go, and they believe also that he was putting up a fight against them for money, and that this may have played a bigger role in what actually happened to him. But other people believe it had more to do with construction work that was going on around his home at the time, and that he had had a falling out with one of these construction managers. He wanted this to be his forever home. He hired someone to do updates to the property. So they brought in a construction company led by a man named Frank Thorogood. The crew and Thorogood took advantage of Jones' celebrity and began bringing people out to the property to party and to hang out. and they were starting to freeload off of the Star. Now, we heard similar tales with Freddie Mercury. We heard similar tales with Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. And these people were being taken advantage of because of their celebrity. So he was kicking these people off of his property. He said he didn't want them there anymore. And so in the coroner's report and from witnesses at the scene that night, they wanted people to believe that he simply died from a drowning. And this is what was listed officially on his death certificate. But it was ultimately changed to death by misadventure. It was reported that he had fresh water in his lungs, and while it indicated both uppers and downers in his system, so drugs and alcohol. Then there was the fresh water in his lungs. Now, someone had put, these construction people had put in fresh water around a garden, like a pond, and a lot of people believe that he drowned in this water. It was difficult to pin down the exact number of people at the scenes, but there were 3 other people who were known to have been there. It was his girlfriend, this Frank Thorogood, and another woman. So a lot of people believe that this was just the police and the people in the community using Brian Jones as an example as to how this lifestyle, this drugs and alcohol and partying, would lead you down a bad road, and they used that over the years to kind of build up his death as this big mystery. Police have opened and closed the investigation into Brian Jones' death 3 or 4 times over the years, and new evidence included the connection with this Frank Thorogood, and this Frank Thorogood was known to have been involved in a near-fatal beating of a woman who tried to talk to the police about what really, she says, really happened. And statements from other people say they thought maybe it was just horseplay that went wrong, but other people believe that Brian Jones was beaten and held under the water. Another man came out later and admitted that he was also there that night, but he was afraid to speak up and say anything. And that Brian Jones' death was ordered to be a cover-up, and that they believe that it involved the local police and that it didn't have anything to do with simple drugs and alcohol. It didn't have anything to do with this construction manager that he was having problems with or the Rolling Stones band, but that it was because he was having problems with these local police officers. And police wanted to make a manslaughter charge, but they were told to forget about it. The only one who possibly could have been charged would have been Frank Thorogood, because he was the only man there that they knew of. But the police said to just drop it and forget about it. So they didn't pursue any charges against him. And later on, this Frank Thorogood was known to have actually confessed to killing Brian Jones. He confessed to other people when he was sick and dying that he killed Brian Jones. He said, "I just finally snapped." And so that's just a mystery of Brian Jones' death. Nobody was really ever able to give a real answer about if he was drowning in the pool and there were 3 or 4 other people there, did anyone jump in to try to help him? And also that Frank Thorogood had injured himself that night and needed to seek medical attention. And the other people who were there that night were never really formally questioned by the police. They gave their statements to other people, but they were never really brought in and questioned about why or what was going on that night. And so Brian Jones' death is still a mystery. It's not known whether he actually did just drown because he was drunk and using drugs and reckless, or if he was beaten to death and drowned in this pond, or if it had something to do with a conspiracy by the police. And so that's just the story of Brian Jones' death as a member of the 27 Club. I would just like to remind everybody, if you haven't already, to please like the video and subscribe to the channel.